everybody. Welcome back to Watch No Evil. This is Matt.
And this is Zach.
And today we've got BDE, that's Big Demon Energy, as we talk about possibly the worst movie that I've ever seen in my entire life. The 2018 original, All the Creatures Were Stirring, directed by David and Rebecca McKendry. Now, Zach, was this utter garbage pile the worst thing you've ever seen, or is that just me?
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you really think...
The worst thing.
Do you think this is worse than I'm the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House?
I honestly do, because at least I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House had narrative threads that tied the movie together. This was a hodgepodge of bad ideas, like a 12-year-old making a decoupage for their mom on Christmas.
I think they had some very small good ideas. It's just how they handled the material. Like, they had too much material, and it was all, like, D grade material. And then there's, like, some, like, A and B grade material in there that they just didn't spend enough time on or didn't develop. And that is what made it one of the worst, if not the worst, movie that we have seen so far for this podcast. And maybe in our lives.
It might be the worst movie that I think I've ever seen.
Val did watch it with us, and she's like, I don't think it's that bad. And I did look at some reviews, and just to see what other people thought. And yes, some people love this movie, and I think you have to take it all within the scope of it's an anthology movie. It's an anthology horror movie that they can't, like, given it's an anthology, you can't develop your ideas too much because you have to give time to everything that's there. Anthologies are designed to be that way.
Right.
Like, you're not supposed to spend too much time in a specific spot. But with the overall Christmas theme and the given that it's a horror movie and they very much market it as such, it just wasn't done justice because yes, you can't spend too much time developing your material, but there is just so much setup. And as we know,
right,
and as we've discussed, in a horror movie, setup is very important. Because that's what builds suspense, that's what plants the seeds that are these ideas to be developed further to produce even more fear earlier or later on. This being an anthology, you can't really have the climax. Best attempt at one was at the very end.
See, I disagree with that because Trick or Treat is an iconic horror movie that is an anthology series that's interwoven by this rapper narrative. And I think Trick or Treat's excellent. And Tales from the Hood is also good. And Creepshow.
Okay. I haven't seen any of those.
The anthology horror thing is not new. Like, it's been done, and it's been done very, very well. The thing about this is that it's almost like they tried to take these classic Christmas tropes and use them as the substance, but then they didn't think about how they could actually, like, make them substantial.
I think that's really, like, the issue with this. If they had just tried to relate all these stories to one another, aside from, like, the overarching theater production, it would make a lot more sense. Like, if there was, like, an element from each of the stories that came together at the end to make this climactic moment, that would have been really awesome. And I think that would have made, like, a really great overall experience with this movie. And given that, it just feels like a complete failure on the part of the writers, because it could be... It could be so easy to make this into a meaningful piece of cinema.
Movie.
But they just didn't do the minimal amount of work that would have been required to get that. And work, I mean writing. And thought.
Yeah, they had too many stories. The Secret Santa White Elephant gift office party at the beginning, where they are giving out the gifts that have weapons in them, is such a good, funny idea. It's very Belko experiment. It's got a lot of potential. But the thing is, we had no time to develop any interest in those characters, and we had no time to, like, get to feel suspense, because the way that it started, the fact that they set it up with us following the guy, he gets killed so suddenly when he opens the package and it's the gun and it shoots him in the head. And I think that was awesome. I was like, yes, all right, here we go. We are into it. And then it just fell apart so fast, because then there's like, oh, here's an infidelity plot line, or this guy was in love with this person and he was so in love that now he killed himself. And it's like, I don't believe that. We had no time for any sort of development. I think if they had kept that one, the second one, and In a Twinkling, and they got rid of the others, it would have been way better. And we're going to go through, I think for the sake of clarity of the podcast, for those of you listening, we're going to talk story by story. So I think it might be a good idea to start with The Stockings Were Hung, which is the first part of this anthology series. The setting, as I mentioned, is this Christmas party at an office where they're doing a white elephant gift. And unbeknownst to them, a mysterious person has laden the gift pile with hidden gifts of varying degrees of danger. One of them is like a little toy box that when opened shoots a bullet into the person looking at it. And then other ones are a knife and a gun and a bullet and a mask, because there's also toxic fumes that are getting pumped into the room to be like, hey, you should all kill each other. I think that was a really funny idea, and they just didn't give us any reason to care about these characters.
Honestly, like, the ending of it just seemed super rushed. It made me feel like I was dumb because of how it was shot, and it was like really confusing because at the end of it, it's like the one girl opens up a gift that has a gas mask in it, and I guess that then in a split second they all decide, hey, this is the only way that any of us are getting out of here alive, so they all start killing each other. But they don't show that. They just show
it just cuts away.
Yeah, it cuts away. You hear like some scuffling and screaming for like half a second. And then you see the one girl, who I guess was the one that survived, walk out there with the gas mask. She walks outside the building and takes the gas mask off. Mm-hmm. And it's just so disappointing, because if you watch the trailer like we did, this is the one story that is featured the most in the trailer and makes you feel like they're going to spend some more time on it. And one, it was disappointing that they got this one over with first, because like, okay, well, the one that I was excited for by watching the trailer is now over. So what do I have to look forward to? And then there's just so many things that are like, so many details that make it clear that the writers have never been to an office Christmas party before. Like the fact that it was in like a meeting room, it was in a particular room rather than like a common area. And then there was no music, there were no drinks, and like the boss character, who I think was supposed to be like a red herring, is in the room for like 2 seconds, and he gets an important boss phone call, and just like the stereotypical jerk of a boss, he walks out of the room and is like, I don't have time for my employees. And I think that he's supposed to be like a suspect, but I never thought of him again after he left.
Yeah, and if you remember, I called who it was, or who it was going to be, almost immediately.
Yeah.
First thing it shows you is sort of like a disrespect being shown to the janitor, and then he's got like that look on his face, and it's like, happens for like, 3 seconds, but immediately it's just like a light bulb clicked. It's like, oh, it's gonna be disgruntled janitor, and that's gonna be the shtick. It's like, oh, the butler did it, and that's I think the thing is that it relied very much on that trope of having the janitor do it, and it relied really heavily on sort of the Purge experiment, Belko experiment, Battle Royale style narrative to tell the story. But the thing about those movies are that we get time to know and give a shit about the characters. And I have no reason to think that any of the people that are in this room are worth being saved in the first place. I'm not emotionally invested. And I think that had they cut some of the other ones from this, and I'll specify when we get to it which one I think that they absolutely should have cut, that they could have given this one more attention. And because of that, they had a super quick escalation. It with that first kill, it ramped up so fast. And then nothing else lived up to that expectation.
The only other thing that came close to that first gift was when the one lady went over in the corner and opened the gift that had, I think it was the one that had a knife in it or something, but then the gas came out. There's a vent right over her, and the gas came out in like a concentrated dose right on top of her and killed her like immediately.
Instantly.
And it's like, that's not how gas works. Literally, the definition of the state of matter that is gas is it fills the container that it's in. It doesn't go directly into someone's face and can be aimed in that way, in that pointed, concentrated way. It's going to waft throughout the entire room and kill everyone then.
And there needs to be a slope to the suspense. And actually, I think that that's what the second one did really well, is that we didn't get everything at once. We had a really nice sort of build up of tense moments that led to the actual scary McScary thing. So the second one was Dash Away All, and in this storyline, we have a man who is bringing Christmas presents to his car to take home to his family, celebrating Christmas, and he accidentally locks his keys and his phone inside of his car, and he sees a van with two lovely strangers that he thinks might be able to help him, so he goes and talks to them. And that's sort of the start of the tension, because you can tell that, like, the two women in that particular scene, they're a little too comfortable with a strange man approaching them at night. They have that, aura of strangeness to them. And actually, when I first was, making guesses as to what could possibly be the situation here, I was thinking, oh, maybe it's like they are some sort of like witches, or they're like succubi, and they're like trying to hunt men down that don't hold the spirit of Christmas, blah, blah, blah. And it turns out that they are actually the guardians to what we are going to call the Antichrist that lives in this van. And so they have to find people that share the December 25th birthday. And if they step too far away from it, the weird Antichrist Jesus thing will kill them. And that was a good one. I think that from the beginning to end, that one was a good story.
Yeah, this one was my favorite in the whole anthology here because they kept the Christ in Christmas. This was the only one that focused on Jesus, and
it didn't mention Jesus one damn time.
Well, I mean the sharing of birth with Jesus.
All right, happy holidays is oppression. We get it, Zach.
No.
I need Jesus.
That's not why. Because this one, I think, like you said, it had that slope of suspense to it. Like, the pacing of it made sense. We were left wondering from the beginning, like in any other good horror movie, okay, how's this going to play out? What are we supposed to be afraid of here? And then by the end of it, we understood some things about what was going on, and it left us with still a sense of suspense at the end. And with what you said about the two girls being like not really freaked out by this guy approaching them at night, I thought that was kind of like a clever flip, because normally it's the girl gets locked out of her car and she has to approach this van where it's two creepy dudes, and the fact that it's two girls and two young women at that, it's kind of gives you this false sense of easiness to it. It's supposed to, but they're acting kind of like they know something that he doesn't. And so it's kind of like this dichotomy of like, oh, it's flipping the script on women are always so innocent, and it's men who are supposed to be feared, and it's like he kind of becomes the victim or has that lower status than them in that moment. He's needing their help, and he's kind of like, you can tell he doesn't want to really approach them in a way. So I thought that was kind of a neat element of it.
This is the only story, I think, that had the necessary parts of good storytelling, which is a rising action, a climax, and a denouement.
Right.
So we actually have like a building of suspense, and then we have the climax happen where we get to see the monster, and then we actually have like some fallout. We get to see the repercussions. I think it would not have been nearly as effective if we didn't have the scene at the end between them where she says that she'll drop those presents off on the front porch of his house.
And I think that this one had a compelling twist to it, because you spend a lot of the story thinking that the women are the kind of like the monsters to be feared. You're like, okay, what are they going to do to him? Right?
Yeah.
And then it ends up being that they're also victims. And that's a really compelling twist, like I mentioned. Because and I like what you mentioned about her wanting to deliver the gifts to his family's house at the end, because that humanizes her, and that tells you at the same time, like, she's just a victim too. She's a victim of circumstance, and she's kind of like, yes, she has passed it on to him, but wouldn't you do the same?
Oh, hell yeah.
Right?
But, I mean, we talked about what we would do, and I had a much more horrifying answer than you did. But I also said that it's just like, okay, well, if it doesn't harm anyone as long as you stay within like 20 feet of it, it's just like, just bring it to just introduce it to the fam. Like, if it's ultimately going to be harmless, I mean, why not? You know what I mean? It's just like, sure.
Right. Yeah, as long as you don't leave that, what's the term? That area, I guess.
Radius?
Yeah, radius. As long as you don't...
The AoE spell?
Step outside that 20-foot radius. Like, you're not gonna hurt anyone.
Yeah, exactly. And then it turns... And then, you know what? You have a great opportunity for a sitcom. You know, you can do The Seagulls and the Antichrist. And it's just like, it's you.
The guy's name was Eric. Eric and the Antichrist. That's a great sitcom name.
There's some comedy to be had, and it's one of those things where you can sort of make it scarier, or you can make this sort of funny in the same way that we sort of make jokes out of Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers. You know, we have the option of taking the villainous character and making them meaningful, giving them like a purpose. And so I think that the fact that this was a nice invented creature in this anthology series made it easily the most enjoyable part of this movie, which leads us into the next one, which is the least enjoyable part of this movie, which is the third story in the anthology series, All Through the House, which is essentially the Christmas Carol and Ebenezer, more like Ebba Needs Work. So the biggest issue that I had with this is that it was fucking terrible.
See, I didn't think this was the worst one. But I didn't like it.
This was the worst.
It was just a Christmas Carol.
You can't take a Christmas Carol and jam it inside of 10 minutes. This is not meant to be. And also, they were just like, you will be visited by 3 ghosts, and the ghosts will be played by the Jabberwockies, the famous dance troupe that performed on America's Got Talent. It's like, this is stupid. And it's like they're trying to update, you know, A Christmas Carol for the modern era by making it Chester and he does cocaine. And the cocaine turning into tinsel and like hurting that was cool. I was that's a funny thing that they did.
That was my favorite part of the movie.
It's just, like, that's a great idea, but you cannot in 10 minutes give a reasonable expectance of catharsis for any character. The entire point of A Christmas Carol is to show bad man life, make bad man be good. And that's a tall order. And they just don't do it in this. It's just like, the things that you have showed me that he is experiencing do not make me think that he will be a good person.
Right. I mean, like, even The Simpsons spent more time on this than this movie.
Yeah. And they did it better.
And they did it much better. They actually pulled it off.
Because the whole thing with Ebenezer Scrooge in A Christmas Carol is when they go back in time, he has both good moments and bad moments to show his childhood, right? We get to sort of see the progression. And in this one, they did some weird garbage where they took him back and showed him his parents yelling at him on Christmas as he sat on the floor. And by he sat on the floor, I mean the grown-ass man that they had playing Chester in a fucking onesie on the floor, sitting with his knees up to his chin, just rocking back and forth. Yep. And then the parents yelling at him about it, and it was just like, you gave me nothing. You've given me no reason to think that he shouldn't hate Christmas because of his... Like, I get it. Just like, this looks like a terrible childhood. This looks like a terrible experience. I would also hate Christmas if this was how Christmas went. Yeah. And then what was his Christmas present? Did they even do a Christmas present? Or was it him watching TV?
Oh, yeah, I don't think they even did one.
Yeah, I think they just skipped it.
I think the present was supposed to be him seeing himself dying, and like then the future was supposed to be like his body decomposing, and he was watching that happen.
Oh, they just tried to like do it really fast. Well, because that's the thing too, because technically he sees himself die, twice? because we get to see him do like the autoerotic asphyxiation with the belt on the door in the bathroom, and then we also get to see the neighbor come over being drunk and being like, right. And was that my Santa? And then push, and then he falls and smacks his head into a large standing piece of glass that kills him.
And then the rats eat him alive. Like, he's still alive when the rats are eating him
alive.
It's like they had 3 different ideas on how to kill him, and they're like, we'll just throw them all in. There's no problem with that.
And it's like they tried to like pack it full of references.
Yeah.
Because I'm almost certain that the snorting cocaine that turns into tinsel, I am almost certain that I've seen that before, and I want to say it's like Jack Frost or something, where that's been done before. And then they decide to do like an It's a Wonderful Life thing with the television and the black and white, and they're on the It's a Wonderful Life channel, or it's like It's a Wonderful channel of this fake, clearly green screened television. Like, quality wise, it's like, at least make it look like a television that would be playing a black and white movie. Like, black and white movies typically aren't in 4K Ultra HD unless it's The Artist, the Oscar winner from like 2016. And then the women, and they're just like, oh, what a shame. It's like, is it really that big of a shame that the neighbor killed him? I don't think that's a shame. That's a murder.
Yeah, I mean, I think that going back to the tinsel thing, I did really like the tinsel thing, and maybe it wasn't an original idea, but I like that in the movie that was playing on the TV, the guy playing Ebenezer Scrooge goes, maybe a tonic will settle this, as he's snorting the cocaine. So it's like kind of like that's his tonic. I just want to like point out the ridiculousness of like when we're watching this scene play out, we're watching a movie about people who are watching a play about a guy who is watching TV, who is watching The Christmas Carol. And it's like this extreme...
And the characters of A Christmas Carol are able to watch the guy.
Right. It's this extreme like inception of voyeurism. And it's like kind of that alone is like a pretty cool idea. It's just that's like, I don't even know if they were even thinking of that when they wrote this story.
I don't want to give them the credit of thinking of that. They're not Shakespeare.
Well, I realize that, but...
The play is not the thing.
Right. The thing that bothered me most, honestly, about this All Through the House story is that he doesn't end up dying. That would just end up being like his coke-induced dream or whatever. He wakes up, his neighbor comes over, and it plays out initially how it played out in his dream. And he goes, he pulls out his wallet. He goes, here's the money for your daughter's charity thing or whatever, and he stuffs the money in his hand, and then he runs outside
and kisses him in the mouth,
right, screaming Merry Christmas, and like it's just so sudden, and like maybe he realized like it is a Christmas Carol, like what's going on here, so I should just act like Scrooge does at the end of that, but it's just so over the top, and it wraps up so quickly, and it's again kind of like the first story. It's like they don't give you enough time to actually digest what's going on in the most important part of the story.
You don't get to enjoy any of it. We get nothing. It wasn't even really a horror movie Christmas Carol. It was just a Christmas Carol with a dude that kind of sucks. Yeah. It's like if they Christmas Caroled Bad Santa. You know what I mean?
They had the spooky ghosts.
Yeah, but the ghosts were an After Effects file that I'm pretty sure I've seen like advertised on Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, it was like YouTube level qualities of... I've seen YouTube videos that have been produced and had better After Effects. The next one was my least favorite. I hated it. It didn't need to be there at all. There's no substance to it.
What? You didn't like Prancer Part 2, The Revenge?
It was Blitzen. Remember they showed the collar for like a minute straight?
Yeah, oh no, I do, but it's the closest thing that I have is the movie Prancer, back in black, you know.
Well,
he's just coming into it again, because here's the question. Blitzen died, which reindeer did the killing?
Yeah, so...
I gotta think it's my boy Prancer, right?
Well, no, I don't think so, because, okay, so this one was called A Rose Such a Clatter. It starts with this guy, literally named Guy, running a reindeer over with his car, because he's looking at some photos while he is driving, and just not paying attention to the road at all. And first of all, this full-size reindeer barely does any damage to his car. They don't show the reindeer's body. They show like one hoof, like kind of twitching. And then he drags it off the side of the road, and then, like, you know,
stabs it.
like you would, he smashes its skull in with a rock. And it's like, yeah, well, he's suffering. So, like, that part, I think, makes sense. It's not like he's malicious, like, oh, I'm enjoying this. He's not, like, a maniac for doing that. And then they show off on the side of the road, it's Blitzen's collar. So it's Santa's reindeer. And then throughout the rest of this story, you get this, like, first-person red filter vision, the kind of like stalking guy, and you first see
it's Rudolph.
You first see this when that's what I thought it was Rudolph. It's like, you know, the red nose. It's like maybe the nose, the way that a reindeer's faces are shaped, maybe the nose just like tints everything he sees red.
Well, you know, they wouldn't let Rudolph join in any of the reindeer games, so he took part in the most dangerous game.
That's the red. The red is his eternal rage because he couldn't participate in the reindeer games.
Rudolph the red-stained reindeer.
Well, and the red filter starts when you get like you get Blitzen's point of view as Guy is about to kill him. So he kills him, and then it does like the 007 like blood effect. It's straight up like the 007 intro where you're looking down the barrel of the gun, and then like the blood just runs down the screen. It's the same thing. And then they just have it completely red throughout the rest of it. So it's like, is this supposed to still be Blitzen? Like Blitzen's zombie or like spirit or something? Or is this a different reindeer? I'd like to think that's Rudolph because that's a little bit more inventive, I think.
I sincerely hope. I don't want to know I don't want a clear answer one way or the other, but I sincerely hope that is supposed to be Rudolph, because if their intention was to make a goddamn zombie Blitzen and have zombie Blitzen come back to exact revenge, I'm going to be very upset.
Well, okay, if that's the case, then show zombie Blitzen. Show a reindeer that looks viscerally frightening.
Oh, Zach.
Or visually frightening.
The reindeer budget.
Yeah.
You can't download that plugin.
They never showed a reindeer.
Adobe Premiere Pro. They didn't even use Adobe Premiere. They used Adobe Rush Elements.
Yeah. It was like they had antlers. Like someone was holding antlers and a camera was strapped to their head while they like rammed those antlers into his midriff. Because then he goes back home and he has this girl, Susi, who's in the photos. And they have this meaningless exchange talking about...
A tete-a-tete.
Yeah, it's just like... And they create intrigue with this Susi character because she's the one he's looking at photos of when he hits Blitzen with his car. So it's like, okay, what's going on here? And he goes home and she's there. And it's just this like meaningless conversation that just doesn't go anywhere. He hears a noise upstairs. He goes upstairs, gets attacked by Blitzen, dies. And then the girl goes up there, wow, what happened to you, Guy? And then she gets attacked by Blitzen. And that's the end. That's it. And it's dumb.
Oh, my God, yeah. That one was, yeah. Here's the thing, though. This was the only one where the score that they used for it was at all good. So, shout out to Scott, whatever his name is. I'm going to actually say his real name because Seth Colgrove is the composer of the score, because the score in that particular moment, or throughout that short, I was like, okay, this is a pretty good score. This person who wrote this music knows what he's doing. And it gave enough, I think, time with scenes happening to sort of listen to the score and take it in. But also, this was the one that they start with right after intermission. And if I remember correctly, it ended. I looked at the time. I said, that was only 9 minutes?
Yeah.
And you said that was the shortest one.
Yeah.
Because I was viscerally upset at the fact that it felt like an eternity in hell.
Yeah, and
you know what? I think that they should have made the whole thing longer. How many we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got essentially 6 stories. I think that they should have bumped it up. You know, just give us the circles of hell. Each one is a little bit worse. This is a torture for us as the audience that has to watch this.
Yeah. I think part of it is, like, they rely on a good deal of camp with this, because with the whole film starts with these two characters, Max and Jenna, meeting up, and they're like, we're two orphans who have no one else to see on Christmas, so, like, let's go see a Christmas themed show together. So they go into this black box theater production, and this is the play that is playing at this theater, and this is like the 5-part play. Each one of these stories that we see is being enacted on stage, and it is unclear as to, is what we're seeing an imaginative interpretation by one of the audience members, or what? Because I can't imagine that either Max or Jenna are having this kind of interpretive, cognitive kind of thought process while this is going on, because they're, like, making fun of the production the whole time it's going on. So that whole thing in itself is confusing.
That's to make them relatable to us, the audience, that are inevitably going to make fun of this. And I don't know, have we been making fun of it? Is it making fun of it to just be upset?
I mean, we've been making a little bit of fun of it, but
who is it for?
Not unjustly, I don't think.
The rapper story, I think, has potential, and the like use of the black box play setting is, like, kind of interesting. It's sort of funny, and it's like a little fourth wall breaking. Mm-hmm. And that's how you do anthology stories. There has to be something that sort of sets up the anthology-ness about it. That has the wraparound, like 4 rooms where we get to follow the bellhop to 4 different rooms and see, in one there are witches, and in the Quentin Tarantino one, he bets on the car, or he has to cut off his one of his fingers. And in this one, the wraparound is that like weird avant-garde style play that I'm almost certain people I know here at this university would actually unironically do or appreciate.
Yeah.
And that's truly the most terrifying premise of all.
Yeah. I mean, there are these elements that do transcend that barrier between what's going on stage and what we're seeing for each segment of this. Like, there is terrible acting on and off stage for this production.
There is terrible acting, yeah.
Throughout.
Terrible acting.
Like, the actors that Max and Jenna they're just terrible. They're, like, not believable at all. And they're just very uncomfortable. And there is this uncomfortable humor that is present throughout. You get that between Max and Jenna and everyone at this theater. But also you get it in a lot of the stories as well, especially the office party. The stockings were hung, and there are those moments throughout where there's just, like, this uncomfortable sense of humor. It's like that, I think, is, like, the one intentional thing that the writers did that actually, like, came through, even though I don't necessarily enjoy that type of humor. At least was consistent.
I mean, why was the acting so bad?
I honestly think that they're like, look, we have a low budget. We're not going to be able to get even, like, a B-list celebrity in here. Well, they got one, but we're not gonna be able to, like...
Who's the B-list celebrity they got?
Was it Constance Wu, right?
Constance Wu, yeah, she's pretty good. She won Best Comedian at the WoW Awards. But the guy that played Chet the Coke Addict, he was in 138 episodes of Two Broke Girls.
Oh, is he, like, some side character?
He's Oleg. 138 episodes is a little less than side character, I feel.
Some of those sitcoms run for, like, 17 years. I've never seen this.
This one was 6 years.
I don't know. I've never seen this
I feel like that's almost every... I think that's every episode.
Oh, okay.
I think he was in every episode. He also was in the Emmy-winning episode of Family Guy. He played Alec Baldwin.
Oh, well, I mean, I think of all
and he was in Black Dynamite.
Of all the actors, those two were the most believable, for sure. And
oh, yeah,
also
absolutely.
the most high profile, by no coincidence. But with the rest of the characters, it's just like, I think they kind of leaned into it. It was like, oh, this is part of a black box theater production, so like the acting's supposed to be bad. And I think at some point they just stopped trying to direct these actors and were just like, lean into it. It's fine. That's how it's supposed to be. We meant for it to be this way the whole time.
Now, another anthology series that I would say is an anthology movie that wasn't as successful as it could have been, had a lot of promise. The Twilight Zone anthology movie that came out in the 2000s, I believe, which tried to play on, obviously, the fame of the original Twilight Zone, which was an excellent, excellent television series and anthology series that told these stories that focused on oddities and space and magic and whatnot. And this next one, the In a Twinkling, was really clearly taken from sort of a Twilight Zone aesthetic. This is the one that actually featured Constance Wu. She comes over to a dinner party because it's important for her to share and celebrate Christmas with her friend that has gone MIA for the past couple of Christmases. And while there, she and he have a discussion where he's cagey because he has a secret, and that secret is that every Christmas he gets abducted by aliens. And this time they bring her along and they give her whatever they desire, and they knew something a little too personal. And there's a miracle about Christmas, and friendship is magic. This one was okay.
Of any of the shorts, this one had the most Christmas spirit in it.
Mm-hmm. And a very original concept.
Yeah, I think it was good. Like this one, I didn't have much to complain about with this one. I think it wrapped up nicely at the end, even though nothing really sinister happened to them. Yes, they were abducted by aliens, but the aliens weren't torturing them or anything. They just wanted to. I think the idea is these aliens are doing their research on this human holiday of Christmas, and they're trying to like figure out some facts about it, and they do tap into this like Christmas memories idea that is important to us humans. And they ask Constance Wu's character, they ask Gabby, what is your favorite Christmas memory? And then she goes off, and like that's the whole meaning behind it, and they seem satiated.
My parents didn't celebrate Christmas, and now I celebrate Christmas.
Right.
It's very much a, hold Christmas in your heart as tight as you can sort of story. But the thing was, like, the whole background of this is that she's coming over to convince her friend to, like, celebrate Christmas, but he never didn't celebrate Christmas. He just get taken by alien. It's not his fault that he couldn't celebrate Christmas the way that he wanted.
I think that's like the point of it, is that there's this natural balance that ends up happening by the end of it, because those two characters find each other as like Christmas sharing.
The two of them spend Christmas together. That being said, I feel like they tried to manufacture some like weird sexual tension between the two of them that just didn't exist, and it didn't work, and they shouldn't have tried to manufacture this tension. And it starts with the fact that he's home and he's just like, oh, I have to get prepped. And so he gets like a bag full of chains and a gun, and you're like, what is happening? And then she comes in and sits on the bed, and she sees the chains, and it tries to like do a weird BDSM joke. It's like, ooh, he likes being tied up in chains.
Followed immediately by another weird BDSM joke.
Yeah, then the other guy coming in and just like, I'll leave you two alone. What do you think that they're gonna do? He just has chains on his... Also, what were the chains for?
Well, I think
they didn't do anything.
Yeah, I think he was gonna like chain himself up so that they couldn't beam him up to their ship or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but like, what's the gun for too? Because he proves the point that the gun does nothing. Because the aliens take the form of the three friends that also come over to this, impromptu Christmas Eve dinner that they're having. And so then they're all sitting around this dinner table, and there's like a weird time loop thing that happens. And then he's like, Constance Wu's like, well, okay, this is a funny joke, haha. And then the dude comes back out and shoots the three of them and then they like quote die unquote, and she freaks out, and he's just like, no, you'll see. And then they like come back. It's just like, what was the gun for? It's clear that you have tried to use the gun before. Why even prepare the gun now? So there is a flaw in the actual preparation of this, and I'm gonna be really honest. I still think that this one was good. That does not disqualify it from also being stupid.
Yeah. I mean, this one...
Because it's like, why prep the gun?
Yeah, there was no reason
You know what's
for the
going to
gun
happen.
besides to demonstrate
They were trying to spook
us.
the audience.
Right.
Yeah. They were trying to be like, ooh, suspense.
Given that these aliens aren't violent in any way, like they're not malicious, I'm not sure why he's so hellbent at the beginning of the short to thwart them and to avoid being abducted. Like at that point, when you know that they're not malicious and that they just mean the best and they just want to know some facts about Christmas from you, like you can get in and out of there in 5 minutes. So I feel like he should have like kind of come to terms with it at that point.
Well, Zach, you never know. Those three aliens, they might have a publishing contract with Krang and Kodos. You know, they're trying to write a book called To Serve Man, and this is their market research.
Oh gosh, they're serving them the wrong way.
Oh man, it's like a wannabe Twilight Zone episode in a way, and the whole thing is there's like. I mentioned this like romantic tension that's sort of misplaced is they give Constance Wu like a weird tragic backstory regarding Christmas, and then they're like, thank you for sharing Christmas with us, and then everything's normal and we go back to the color television, and then they're doing like a weird hug as they look at the Christmas tree with a note that says spend Christmas together or something. And are we supposed to think that like he and Constance Wu are like gonna like hook up now, or that they're like gonna be married in their shared experience of Christmas?
I didn't read it that way. I think I thought of it as just like, oh, it's like Christmas is meant to be spent with other people that you care about, kind of thing. Like
this one wasn't even horror,
right? That's I was about to say. This one is definitely, like, if it were to be its own movie, this would be more of a Christmas movie than a horror movie, for sure. It's just, like, it's a Christmas movie with Twilight Zone elements, is what it is.
With two horror elements, and that is, he comes in and he shoots the three of them, but which is fine because they just get back up and are fine. And then the weird, like, face melt into static scream thing that they do when she asks them why they are asking questions about Christmas.
Yeah, I liked that effect.
Yeah, I did too. It went on a little too long, so you got to see a little bit too much how fake it was. But if it had just been like a quick like, meh, and then getting over with it and continuing with the story with whatever his name is, just going like, yeah, they really don't like when you ask that question. And just like being done. Right. Being like moving on from that subject. Here's this doll. They pulled a Santa Claus 2, the Mrs. Claus, and they gave her a doll that she wanted when she was a child that she begged for that she never got.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, it's literally just the Santa Claus 2. They Santa Claus 2'd me and I didn't even notice.
I didn't either, but I'm not sure. Oh no, I have seen that one. That's the one where he has to like find a wife, or he's not Santa anymore. He has to find a wife,
and she doesn't like Christmas because she never got to do the Christmas thing right. And he's just like, here's this present, and it's like it's a doll that she wanted when she was a child, and she's like, how did you? I never told anybody about this, and it's just like nobody cares. But then did they do the same thing in Miracle on 34th Street? I guess.
So are we supposed to just learn that all women care about our dolls? Like,
yeah, as children,
it's
right.
It's that materialism that as humans we cannot fight off.
The aliens go.
It's gonna go.
I think there's a present
way deep into this.
I think there's a present over there behind the couch. And she goes and it's like a fucking Red Ryder BB gun. She's like, I never told anybody about this.
This doesn't seem referential at all.
I mean, the qualitatively, it would be to me on the same level as most of this movie. Like, right. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Although a moment that I did like in this one was when they were at the dinner table with the aliens. Mm-hmm. One of the aliens asks Gabby, he goes, would you like to say a blessing? And then Gabby goes, Jesus Christ, Mary, because the friend's name is Mary. And then the aliens all go, Amen.
Amen.
I thought that was a great moment.
That was a good moment.
Another
give the movie that one.
It's another humor element. I feel like they did a good job with the humor in this movie, like in the way that a lot of horror movies do, where like they have to have some comic relief sometimes. Yeah. Where this one, I don't think there was absolutely necessary, but it was appreciated.
It's one of those things where it can be really hit or miss, and I guess they missed a lot, mistletoed a lot in this. But that one landed, I think. And then they do end To All a Good Night, which is the end of the rapper story, where she gets to see the future play out, because the play comes to an end. The actors are at the front, and they are doing this final segment where they are actually repeating things that they said to each other, that being Max and Jenna earlier. And so obviously Jenna is off put by this, because Max is also in the bathroom, and he's secretly on a call, and then the play reveals like, oh, I wasn't gonna do it, but I need to feed. Call back to our previous episode. She has the need to feed. Go watch that one if you haven't already. But then comes back and it plays out the scene, and so it's supposed to be this sort of like, she got to see the future and bad things are coming, and then his face like turns into one of the like scary static demon faces from the last story about him being like hungry. I thought that was weird that they used the same like After Effects plugin to make him look like a ghosty thing at the end. Is like, wait, so was he an alien? Was he a hungry alien? Can I download the Snapchat filter?
It really did look like one of those Snapchat filters.
It's like when they did promotional material for The Nun on Snapchat. It like felt like that.
Yeah, that's actually a really good way of putting it. But yeah, and then like nothing happens. Like they make it seem like it was just kind of like her imagination then, because then he goes like, oh, like that was weird, and then they just get up and leave, and it's just anticlimactic thing. And my problem with the rapper story is that it's terrible in all ways, and and the reasoning for that is that there's just all these strange details that lead nowhere. Like, they make a huge point in the beginning when they meet up at first that they're orphans and they're together on Christmas Eve, and you feel like that's going to go somewhere possibly. It doesn't. And then there's the old man in the theater who is staring at Jenna the whole time.
Ian Gregory?
Yeah, and so at first, like, she sees him in the lobby. He's supposedly...
he was in Fallout New Vegas.
I don't care what he was in. He was not a good element of this film. Like, at the beginning, he's supposedly reading this book, but he's turning the pages while he's staring at Jenna. And then throughout the whole play, like, she'll look back and he's just staring at her. And then at the very end, he's just staring at her. And that, like, you expect that to go somewhere, or at least to lead to, like, this kind of, like, a jump scare where she turns around, he's right there, or just something, or, like, even a cliffhanger. Like, that would have been fine. But it led nowhere. Nothing happened with that. So this isn't a game, but I thought it would be an interesting segment, because I was sitting around earlier today. I got a little bored because I had like a half day of work, and I was like, I wonder what people had to say about this in reviews.
Okay.
In actual reviews. So I'm going to call this, I'm just going to read some reviews, but we'll call this All the Creatures Were Stirring the Tomato Sauce, because I pulled these largely from Rotten Tomatoes.
Got it.
So here is the first one. This is from an actual critic. This is from Joey Kyo from Vague Visages. And the quote, the review is, All the Creatures Were Stirring isn't as accomplished as Tales of Halloween, but its shorter runtime and singular vision mean there isn't an obvious dud in the handful of shorts. And
there isn't an obvious dud?
There isn't an obvious dud. And I said, why? I suppose...
made the claim that there's not a dud?
My reaction was, I suppose it isn't an obvious dud, but you might have to look a little deeper than that surface layer to find out that it's a dud.
Well, here's the thing, Zach. Here's the question for you. If you buy 5 fireworks and none of them work, are they all duds, or are they just bad fireworks?
I feel like if they're bad fireworks, then they're duds.
I feel like for something to be considered a dud, it has to be some sort of chocolate, or it has to be objectively worse than all the others of its kind. Now, if we are comparing each of these short stories to the other short stories, then yes, there are no duds, because all of them are trash.
I mean, I think this review, it highlights the shorter runtime, which is like, okay, so it's not good, but at least it's short.
It felt like it was longer than Rear Window.
It did. And Rear Window is the longest one that we've watched for this podcast. So that's the first one. Here's another one. This is from Matt Donato from Flickering Myth. A rough around the edges Xmas horror anthology, like a bargain bin present loosely wrapped in last year's newspaper, but at least done so with love. And I completely agree with this one. He gave it a 2 out of 5. This is exactly how I feel about it. It's like, yes, it's rough around the edges. It's an anthology. It is bargain, I would say, and but it is done so with love. Like, you can tell that these people appreciate horror movies. They appreciate horror elements, and they had some original ideas that were decent and had potential.
Right. And, it's rough around the edges, and much like a 14-year-old Call of Duty player on Twitter, it's all edge, baby. All
Nothing
rough.
Personnel, kid.
Nothing personnel.
So Matt Donato, I think you hit it on the head there. Next one. This is from an anonymous. This is just a audience rating. This is couldn't focus, so boating. And I think they meant to write boring. Boring. But it's so boating.
So boating.
So boating. I mean, this is a boating movie, that's for sure.
God, this movie's just so boating.
It's pretty boating. Like, we were just so boated waiting for it to end.
Gonna get that on a t-shirt. So boating.
I'm so boated. Here's another anonymous one. Average anthology, below average ending. And that's another one that kind of resonated with me.
You know what? I'm going to say that's true, because there are a lot of terrible anthology series. For example, the ABCs of Horror, and also the ABCs of Horror 2.
Well, speaking of anthologies, this is another critic, Trace Thurman from Bloody Disgusting. And it kind of goes back to what you were saying about Trick or Treat. Trick or Treat, this is not.
Yeah.
And 1.5 out of 5. And I think we have to watch Trick or Treat to compare to this one. All right, here's the last one. This is by Molly Henry from The Blogging Banshee. All the Creatures We're Stirring is the new must-watch horror film for the holidays. It will be loved for Christmas the way people love to watch Trick or Treat for Halloween. 8.5 out of 10. Wrong. Just gonna say that. Maybe some people
incorrect.
will love it. Maybe some people will love to watch it every Christmas, but I'd rather watch Black Christmas any day.
I would rather watch Black Christmas,
just like
the 2019 remake, than this movie. And I didn't like that movie either.
I mean, it at least had a cohesive plot. Not that Anthology
Well, whoever
should.
wrote that one, I disagree. Yeah, an anthology doesn't need one coherent thread, but it does need good quality filmmaking.
It needs good, is all you need to say. You can stop there.
It needs good. Oh man.
That's like I said this whole time. There are things to be appreciated in this movie, like its potential, and I feel like that's a really backhanded way of saying that it's, or a backwards way of saying that it's bad. And I will say it's a bad movie in my opinion, but it's my opinion, and I can see how some people might enjoy this because it does have those campy kind of features to it, and it plays on some nostalgia and those kind of things, but it's just that it had potential, and it truly had potential that was not used. The ending of each story is rushed. It seemed like they always were trying to avoid the stereotypical horror ending to deny expectation, like laugh in their audience's face. Like the very ending of the movie. It's like, oh, he's gonna do something, he's gonna eat her or something, and then kidding, he didn't, because that you've seen horror movies before and that's what you're expecting, so haha. And it's like, as a good film and a good filmmaker, you don't want to make your audience feel dumb, right?
Right.
When there's a twist in the plot that can be appreciated, it's because, oh, I didn't expect this to happen. This is a delight that it happened. It's not, oh man, like I was expecting to go one way and like I'm disappointed now because it didn't go that way. It should be, you shouldn't be disappointed by a twist in the plot.
It should be, you got me, damn.
Right. You should be happy about it. Do not recommend.
Do not recommend. I can't either.
If you didn't watch this All the Creatures Were Stirring in preparation to listen to this episode of our podcast, save your time. We've already painted a better picture for you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this week's episode of Watch No Evil, All the Creatures Were Stirring. This is Matt.
And this is Zach.
And remember,
he sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good. So be good for goodness sake.